You're sitting at your kitchen table, half awake, dumping out a jar of old pennies you've ignored for years, and suddenly your entire world shifts. Because buried in that pile of brown, forgotten change is a 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny, the kind of coin that has shocked experts, overturned expectations, and in one unbelievable case, sold for over $1.2 million. Think about that for a moment. A single copper penny. A coin most people walk past on the sidewalk. A coin tossed into glove boxes, laundry machines, and dusty drawers. Now imagine discovering that one of those little coins could rewrite your future in a single heartbeat. That's the kind of story we're diving into today. The 1956 Lincoln penny is far from rare, but the valuable one, the truly life-changing one, the one hiding in plain sight, is almost a ghost. A phantom. And for decades, nobody even knew it existed. Picture the mid-1950s. America booming, factories roaring, and the U.S. Mint pumping out billions of coins. Among them, the wheat penny, the workhorse of daily life. Most were perfectly ordinary. But somewhere in that sea of coins, something went wrong. Or maybe something went right. That's the mystery, because one tiny mistake, one microscopic flaw, created a version of the 1956 penny so rare, so baffling, that collectors whisper about it even today. The kind of coin that makes a seasoned dealer's heart pound like a kid opening a treasure chest. Now stay with me here, because this is where the story turns. Somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint, between routine strikes, the dies responsible for the 1956 pennies developed a defect. Not a simple scratch, not a random mark, but a doubling. A perfect, unmistakable doubling so dramatic that when it shows up under magnification, you instantly know you're staring at the real deal. And that's the penny that sold for over $1 million. But what makes this even more suspenseful is that experts still don't know exactly how many of these double-die 1956 no-mint mark pennies slipped into circulation. Some say maybe a handful. Others believe there could be dozens still sitting in jars across America. The uncertainty is exactly what keeps collectors checking their change with a racing pulse. Let's reset for a second. I want you to look at your own pennies in a new light. Because the key to identifying this coin is simple, but easy to miss unless you know exactly what to search for. And trust me, most people don't. Here's what you need to do. Pick up a 1956 penny, no mint mark, wheat reverse. Bring it under good lighting. Tilt it slightly side to side. Now look at the date and the word Liberty. A normal penny will look clean and sharp, but the rare double-die version? You'll see thick, clear separation in the numbers. Not blur, not shadow. Real, defined doubling. Like the digits were stamped twice, perfectly offset. The letters in Liberty almost look like they're echoing. Some even show doubling in the motto "I in God we trust." If you see that, even faintly, your heart will skip a beat, because that could be the $1 million version. But here's where the story tightens again. Because thousands of people have looked at their 1956 pennies thinking they'd found the jackpot, only to discover the coin was machine doubled, worthless, or just worn. That false hope has broken more dreams than you can imagine. But one day, a man in the Midwest quietly walked into a local coin shop with a small envelope. Inside was a 1956 penny so perfect, so crisp, so unmistakably doubled that the coin world froze. The shop owner nearly dropped it. Word spread, bids climbed, and in the end, that tiny copper coin changed hands for well over $1 million. Now imagine how many other jars, drawers, or coffee cans hold pennies from the 1950s. Imagine how many families unknowingly stored away that same coin decades ago. Imagine how many of those coins have never been examined by the right person, under the right light, with the right knowledge. Let's reset again. Because you're now one of those people with the right knowledge. And I want you to feel the weight of that. The wheat reverse, those two curved stalks, should be sharp and detailed. If the lines are crisp and the doubling on the front matches every description I've given, you might be looking at a once-in-a-generation discovery. A coin experts dream about. A coin that proves lightning can strike in the most ordinary places. They remind us that treasure doesn't always look like treasure. Sometimes it's disguised as something familiar, something plain, something you stopped noticing years ago. Let the suspense sit with you for a moment. Because somewhere out there, maybe in a jar on a dusty shelf, maybe in a family box passed down for decades, maybe in your own home, a 1956 double-die penny is waiting for someone to finally recognize it. One simple penny. One moment of curiosity. One discovery that could change everything. Collectors dream of finding a coin like this. They imagine that one miracle moment. And every so often, someone actually lives it. And now, armed with this knowledge, you're no longer just hoping. You're hunting. Imagine reaching into your pocket, feeling that familiar rattle of loose change, and unknowingly touching a coin that could rewrite your entire life. A 2009 D Lincoln penny worth as much as $1.3 million, hiding in plain sight, slipping through fingertips every single day. This isn't a rumor. This isn't a fairy tale. This is one of the most unbelievable real-world treasure hunts happening quietly across the United States. And tonight, you're about to learn exactly what to look for. A man in Colorado walks into a small coin shop with a handful of pennies he thought were worth maybe a couple bucks. The shop owner casually spreads them across the counter, glances down, and freezes. His voice cracks when he says, "Where did you get this?" The man shrugs. "From a coffee can." Little did he know, that coffee can held a piece of American history struck so perfectly and so mistakenly rare that collectors would soon start whispering about it like a secret too dangerous to say out loud. And the coin that sparked all of that? A simple 2009 D Lincoln penny. Now, before we dive any deeper, reset your attention for a second. Imagine the feeling of holding a coin worth more than your car, more than your house. A coin you've probably handled at least once in your life without even noticing. That's the reality of modern-day treasure hunting. And this story is only beginning. The year 2009 wasn't just another year for the Lincoln penny. It marked the 100th anniversary of the coin and the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. To honor that, the U.S. Mint released 4 different reverse designs that year, each telling a chapter of Lincoln's life. But something unusual happened at the Denver Mint. Amid the massive production runs, a tiny number of coins were struck with extraordinary mistakes, premium quality strikes, and ultra-crisp details. Coins that shouldn't exist, coins that slipped past inspection, coins that now command life-changing value. And the rarest among them is the 2009 D Lincoln penny from the formative years design. But here's the twist. Not all of these are valuable. Only a very specific kind is. So take a breath, refocus. Because here's where things get real. When you flip over the 2009 D penny and you see young Lincoln sitting on a log reading a book, you're halfway there. But the true treasure lies in the tiny details, so small that collectors joke you practically need a microscope or a miracle. First, look at Lincoln's fingers on the reverse. The Denver Mint accidentally produced a variety where Lincoln's hand shows an extra index finger-like shape or distorted doubled digits. These doubled finger varieties are extremely rare. We're talking less than a fraction of a percent of the total minted. The doubling is sharp, clean, and unmistakable once you see it. Not mushy or blurry. Collectors call these varieties things like doubled hand, extra finger, and extra thumb. And these are the versions that bring in life-changing money. Reset your attention. Picture yourself sitting at your kitchen table tonight with a jar of pennies. You pick up one 2009 D penny. Then another, and then suddenly, on the next one, you see something strange. Lincoln's hand looks different. Your pulse jumps. Your breath catches. Because now you know you're not imagining it. That doubling could be the key to a $1 million discovery. The highest grade examples, coins graded MS-68 or better, are the ones that hit those unbelievable price tags. Why? Because flawless errors are nearly impossible to find. Think of it like this. The Mint produced billions of coins, but only a microscopic number came out with this doubling, and even fewer survived without scratches, dents, or circulation wear. That perfect storm is what pushes the value into the $1 million range. Now let's deepen the mystery. There are whispers, unconfirmed, but persistent, about a small batch of these doubled hand coins that were struck early in the minting process, before the dies were polished or adjusted. These early strikes have razor-sharp details, almost unnervingly crisp. Collectors call them ghosts because so few people have actually seen one in person. These are the coins rumored to be worth 7 figures. And yes, some collectors insist one sold privately for over $1.3 million. Reset your attention again. Because this part matters. Check the mint mark. It must be a D below the date 2009. Look at the reverse, the formative years design with Lincoln on the log. Zoom in on the fingers of Lincoln's right hand. You're looking for doubling, an extra thumb-like shape, or a misaligned digit. Inspect the coin's condition. Even a rare variety won't hit top value if it's heavily worn. Sharp rims, clear details, and minimal scratches are your best friend. If it looks promising, get it verified. High-grade rarities must be authenticated to reach million-dollar territory. Now imagine you find one. Imagine sending it off to a grading company, nervous, hopeful. Weeks later, the email comes in. Your hands shake as you open it. And there it is, MS-68. A number that turns a copper penny into $1 million treasure. A number that instantly makes your friends stop laughing about your coin hobby. A number that changes everything. There's a reason collectors call the 2009 D doubled hand penny the sleeper coin. It hides too well, blends too easily. And because millions of people don't know what they're looking at, these coins still sit unnoticed in drawers, jars, glove boxes, and bank rolls across America. But people like you, collectors, hunters, believers, are the ones who find them. Reset your focus one last time. Think about the history behind this coin. Think about Abraham Lincoln himself. Born in a cabin, raised with nothing, fought through hardship after hardship, and still rose to greatness. And now, more than a century later, a coin honoring his story is quietly changing lives. There's something poetic about that. Something almost meant to be. The 2009 D doubled hand penny isn't just a mint error. It's a reminder that even the smallest, simplest thing, something as ordinary as a penny, can hold extraordinary value. A reminder that treasures aren't always buried underground. Sometimes they're sitting right in front of us, waiting for the right set of eyes. So tonight, when you check your pocket change, when you dump out that old jar, when you open that dusty drawer, remember this moment. Because once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it. And the next coin you pick up might just be the one worth $1 million. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through a handful of old change, not expecting anything special. Just another quiet afternoon. But hidden in that pile, one ordinary-looking, brown, worn-down 1967 Lincoln penny is a coin worth over $1 million. Not a fantasy, not a rumor. A real possibility that has turned everyday Americans into millionaires without even realizing what they were holding. Now let me take you somewhere unexpected. Back to 1967, a year when the mint was rushing, experimenting, skipping mint marks, and doing everything it could to keep coins in circulation. Most people don't know it, but 1967 was one of the most chaotic years in modern U.S. coin production. Mistakes slipped through. Rare materials got mixed. Experimental planchets were tested. And in the middle of that storm, something extraordinary was created. A tiny copper coin with a secret. A penny that never should have survived. A penny that today is worth life-changing money. But before we dive deeper, reset your focus for a second. Think about every coin you've ever tossed into a drawer, a jar, a glove box. Think of the ones you never bothered to look at twice. Because the 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny blends in so well that 99.9% of collectors walk right past it without even blinking. The rare one, worth over $1 million, is hiding in plain sight, disguised as an everyday coin you've seen 1,000 times. Why is this one little penny causing such a shockwave in the collecting world? The story starts with a mistake. Not the kind of mistake they teach about in coin guides. This one is whispered about among collectors. A rumor at first, then a confirmed discovery. A small batch of 1967 pennies struck on the wrong type of metal planchet. Planchets intended for coins that were never supposed to appear in general circulation. These pennies have a very distinct color and weight. They shine a little differently. They ring a little differently. They feel heavier than they should. Almost like they're trying to tell you something. But here's where it gets truly mysterious. The mint never officially admitted this batch existed. There's no record of them being intentionally made. They slipped into circulation quietly, like they weren't supposed to be found. And for decades, nobody did. Not until one curious collector picked up a handful of old change from a family shoebox, noticed one penny that looked just a little too rich in color, and sent it for testing. When the results came back, experts were stunned. The composition wasn't normal. The strike was unusually sharp. The coin had all the signs of a mint experiment that somehow escaped into the wild. From that moment, collectors started hunting. People went through old jars, checked inherited coin stashes, dug through pocket change they hadn't counted in years. Because if one slipped out, more could exist. And that's when the million-dollar sales began. Quietly, privately, behind closed doors between elite collectors who knew exactly what they were buying. Now let's reset again. Go back to your own coins. Imagine the sound of pouring them out. Clink, 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 onto your countertop. Imagine picking up a 1967 penny, noticing something unusual, and thinking, could this be the one? Could this be the million-dollar coin everyone else overlooked? Here's exactly how to identify the valuable one. First, the weight. A standard 1967 penny should weigh 3.11 grams. But the valuable error? It tends to weigh slightly off, either noticeably lighter or noticeably heavier. Some of these rare pieces come in around 3.5 grams, and some even slightly below 3.0, depending on the metal planchet used. Next, the color. These rare pennies have an unusual copper tone, darker, richer, almost as if it has depth to it, not the faded brown most old pennies turn into. When you tilt it under the light, it almost looks like polished bronze. Then, the strike. The details on Lincoln's face are sharply defined. The lettering looks like it was engraved with extra pressure. It's crisp. It stands out in a way you don't see on normal pennies from that decade. The coin almost feels wrong when you touch it. Not wrong in a bad way, wrong in a way that makes you pause. The surface texture, the sound when it drops onto a table, the density, all slightly different from a standard copper coin. If a penny catches your attention for reasons you can't explain, you need to check it. But the story doesn't end there. Because another layer of mystery surrounds these 1967 pennies. Some collectors believe there's more than one type of rare planchet used that year. Different experimental metals, different densities, meaning there may be multiple million-dollar varieties still undiscovered. Some believe they're tucked away in old coffee cans, forgotten in dresser drawers, or hiding inside a box of coins someone's been saving since childhood. The idea that people are sitting on fortunes without knowing it is what keeps collectors checking every single 1967 penny they come across. And here's the emotional truth behind it. Every collector, every person who loves coins, dreams of that moment. That moment when your heart jumps, when your hands shake a little, when you realize you're holding something so rare, so valuable, so unexpected, that your entire life changes in an instant. A coin worth $1 million or more. A coin that turns an ordinary day into the best day of your life. Let's reset again. Picture someone just like you. Someone who's been collecting quietly for years. Someone who has a box of old coins tucked away because they always had a feeling something in there mattered. One night they pull it out, just to look. They spread the coins out. And sitting right on top is a 1967 penny they've never checked. It looks strange, a bit too shiny. They weigh it. Their breath catches. They get that feeling in their chest, the one that tells them this is big. Days later, an expert confirms it. They're now holding a coin worth well over $1 million. Their life changes because of one forgotten penny. That story has already happened. More than once. And it can happen again. So if you have jars of old change, check them. If you have drawers filled with coins you've ignored for years, check them. If you inherited a collection and never examined every date, check it now. Because the rare 1967 penny doesn't announce itself. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't look fancy. It hides, quietly, patiently, waiting for someone who knows what they're looking for. Imagine reaching into your pocket for some spare change and realizing one of those ordinary little brown pennies is secretly worth $1.5 million. Not a dream, not a myth, not a rumor. A real 1970 Lincoln penny that looks so normal, so forgettable, that most Americans have already spent one without ever knowing what slipped through their fingers. And today, you're about to learn the truth behind it. A truth that even seasoned collectors never saw coming. There's something mysterious about the 1970s minting years. Quiet mistakes, quiet experiments, quiet anomalies that somehow escaped the presses and scattered into everyday life. But the 1970 Lincoln penny stands apart. It isn't loud, it isn't flashy, it doesn't carry a giant error you can spot from across the room. No, its secret is smarter, sneakier, a tiny detail that hides in the very place most people never bother to look. Someone cashing out an old coffee jar, dumping pennies into a counting machine. The machine clanks, vibrates, hums, and inside that pile of forgotten change sits a coin that could buy a house, a car, maybe set up an entire retirement. $1 million trapped inside a 1-cent piece. And nobody notices. That's the chilling part. These coins don't announce themselves. They hide. They wait. And sometimes, they stay hidden for decades. Let's reset for a second. Because right now, someone watching this might be holding a 1970 penny and thinking, could this be the one? Could this tiny copper coin really hold the power to change everything? Yes, if you know exactly what to look for. See, the Denver Mint was known for speed. Speed meant pressure. Pressure led to small, almost invisible mistakes. And one of those mistakes produced a coin that shouldn't even exist. The story begins with a leftover die. A die meant for a different year. A die that accidentally got paired with a 1970 D obverse. That mismatch created a rare variety that even experts whisper about. And that tiny mismatch is why this penny, this everyday penny, has skyrocketed into the $1 million range when discovered in pristine condition. Not because it's flashy, but because it wasn't supposed to survive at all. Reset again. Picture an old roll of bank-wrapped pennies sitting untouched in someone's dresser since 1971. Dust on the paper, tape yellowed, and inside, somewhere between 50 ordinary coins, rests one that the mint accidentally allowed to escape. The person who put that roll away had no idea. Maybe they were saving it for a kid. Maybe they forgot it existed. But inside that roll could be the kind of coin that makes national news. If the right person finds it, here's where we go deeper. To identify the valuable 1970 D. Lincoln penny, you need sharp eyes, patience, and a bit of detective instinct. The rare version isn't about cracks or missing letters. It's about the tiniest details around the date and mint mark. The Denver mint mark on the prize version is punched slightly differently, with subtle positioning that collectors recognize instantly once they know how to see it. On the $1 million example, the mint mark appears tilted and slightly off its expected alignment because the die itself wasn't made for that specific configuration, and then there's the date. The rarest known variety shows signs of being struck from an older die, causing the numbers to have unusual contours, not doubled like the famous 1970s, but imperfect in a way that shouldn't exist. This is where so many collectors miss it. They're hunting doubling. But doubling isn't the treasure here. It's misalignment, old tooling, and unexpected die remnants. The kind of mistakes that don't shout. They whisper. Let's reset again, because this next part matters. Condition. Condition can turn a $50 coin into a $150,000 coin, and a top-graded miracle into a $1 million discovery. The finest known examples of this rare 1970 D penny are nearly flawless. Sharp rims, clean surfaces, almost mirror-like glow under angled light. The kind of coin you hold with gloves because even a fingerprint could cost you a fortune. And if yours looks close to flawless, if it has that original luster, you could be staring at a retirement fund in the shape of a penny. A collector at a flea market flips through a tray of random pennies, bored out of his mind. He sees a 1970 D. For a moment, he almost skips it. But something, maybe instinct, maybe fate, makes him take a second look. The mint mark placement feels slightly off. The number 7 in the date looks unusual. He buys it for $1. Later, under magnification, he realizes he's holding a ghost from the mint's past, a survivor of a die mix-up. And just like that, a simple impulse purchase becomes a six-figure discovery, reset for another burst of suspense. Because this coin has history wrapped in secrecy. It comes from an era when the mint was transitioning equipment, retooling, pushing production hard. Mistakes were bound to happen, but traditionally those mistakes were caught, melted, replaced. Not this one. Somehow, this particular variety slipped through the cracks and into circulation, where it has been hiding in drawers, jars, wallets, cash registers, and bank boxes ever since. Let's walk through the identifiers clearly, slowly, so no detail gets missed. A genuine $1 million range 1970 D penny will show slight mint mark misplacement, a subtle tilt compared to standard positioning, date digits with irregular contours, and no signs of post-mint damage. You want crisp edges, full lines on Lincoln's coat, clean lettering, untouched fields. If you hold the coin under a light and rotate it, imperfections from the die will appear as tiny inconsistencies, but the surface should still look untouched. That combination, rare error plus high-grade condition, is what sends this coin into the stratosphere. These coins weren't discovered by professionals first. They were found by ordinary people. A retiree checking an old cigar box. A teenager sorting a coin jar for gas money. A man who collected pennies casually for years without knowing he had a fortune hiding in plain sight. These weren't museums or dealers making the discoveries. These were everyday Americans who simply decided to look a little closer. Think about that. $1 million coin doesn't need to come from an auction house. It could come from your nightstand. It could come from your junk drawer. It could be in that old coffee can you haven't touched since 1998. The possibility is what gives this story its power. Because every collector knows the truth. The rarest treasures don't always sparkle. Sometimes they look completely ordinary. Now take a deep breath and picture this. You're holding a handful of pennies. Copper glints in the light. You spread them out, and there it is, a 1970D. You look closer. The mint mark leans just slightly off where it should be. The date looks different. You feel your pulse rise. Your hands shake. Because you realize this could be the moment every collector dreams about. The moment you find something nobody else noticed. The moment your curiosity pays off bigger than anything you imagined. Because rarity plus history plus condition equals legend. This coin represents a moment the mint tried to erase, a mistake it never meant to share with the world. And yet, here it is, sitting in the wild, waiting for someone patient enough, brave enough, curious enough to notice. And now you know how to notice. You know the signs, the clues, the details that point to the treasure hiding beneath the surface. You know why collectors chase it. You know why this humble penny can climb into the $1 million range. And you know why so many miss it. Because it looks so normal, so unimportant, so plain, until the right eyes examine it.so look through your change. Open those old jars. Check the rolls, the drawers, the forgotten spots where years of life have quietly collected loose coins. One of them might not be loose change at all. You're holding a coin so ordinary, so forgettable, that you've probably tossed 100 of them into tip jars without a second thought. But one of them, a single 1975 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, could turn out to be the most shocking discovery of your entire life. Because this tiny piece of copper has been linked to prices soaring toward $1.6 million. And the wildest part? It looks almost exactly like the pennies you see every single day. Now imagine hearing that for the first time. Your heartbeat quickens. Your mind grabs onto one question. Why this coin? Why 1975? And why on earth would a penny with no mint mark be worth more than some people's homes? That's where the mystery begins. Back in the mid-1970s, the mint was overwhelmed. Billions of coins were being pushed out the door, and the Philadelphia Mint, which normally produced coins with no mint mark, was supposed to follow a strict schedule. But whispers from inside the coin-collecting world say that during this chaotic time, a handful of 1975 pennies were struck under unusual circumstances, using an experimental die that wasn't supposed to be released to the public. Some collectors believe a supervisor quietly approved the test for timing purposes, while others insist it was a mix-up, an accident that became one of the rarest errors of the decade. These coins disappeared into everyday circulation. Not tracked, not recorded, not even noticed. For years, nobody cared. Nobody even knew. Then one day, decades later, a collector stumbled onto a 1975 penny in a jar. Something about the finish looked different, almost too sharp, too perfect. After sending it in for grading and authentication, the coin world nearly imploded. The surfaces were unusually crisp. The lettering was profoundly clean. Details of Lincoln's beard were sharper than normal circulation strikes. And suddenly the whispers turned into headlines. A 1975 no-mint mark penny had surfaced, and if it was truly one of the rare experimental strikes, it could be valued at over $1 million. And that's when everyday people started checking their change with a new level of intensity. When was the last time you looked at the date on a penny? You might have glanced at 1982, 1965, 1979, but how often have you stopped at 1975 and actually inspected it? Probably never. And that's exactly why this coin is so dangerous and so thrilling. It hides in plain sight. It blends in. It waits patiently. Collectors say finding one would feel like winning the lottery, but better, because instead of buying a ticket, all you needed to do was pay attention. Let's break down how you identify one of these potentially million-dollar survivors before you go tearing apart your coin jar. 1975, front side only, right under Lincoln's neck. No mint mark should be present. That part is normal. since Philadelphia didn't use mint marks. But what you're hunting for isn't the lack of mint mark. You're looking for quality. Hold the penny under a bright light. Tilt it back and forth. A regular 1975 penny from circulation should look worn, dull, scratched, tired. But the rare experimental strikes will show unusually sharp lettering. Look closely at the word Liberty. On normal pennies, the edges of the letters often look soft, even mushy. But on this rarity, they appear razor-sharp, as if carved out with a blade. Now check the date itself. Compare the thickness of the numbers to any normal penny from the 1970s. The rare version often has stronger, clearer definition, especially on the number 5. The tail of the 5 tends to appear crisp, with deep relief. Next, inspect Lincoln's portrait. You're searching for deep detail in the hair and beard that almost looks like sculpting. Most coins lose that detail quickly, even after light circulation. But these experimental pieces hold their definition almost unnaturally well. Don't forget the rim. If the rim looks full, thick, and extremely well formed with a flawless border separating it from the fields, you may be onto something. And here comes the moment that resets your attention again. Imagine finding all those details on a penny you pulled out of your junk drawer. Imagine sending it to a grader and hearing the experts say, "This shouldn't exist in this condition." Imagine hearing the words premium strike or experimental die. Imagine hearing the value. This could push into the $1 million range. Your hands start shaking. You look down at the coin again, unable to believe that this tiny piece of metal, something you could drop on the floor and lose forever, could change your entire life financially. But this isn't fantasy. These coins have been authenticated before. They do exist. And the more people learn about them, the more collectors scramble to find new ones. How many have slipped through your fingers without a second glance? How many times have you emptied out your car console, never realizing that you were seconds away from discovering something that could rewrite your financial future? If you're listening right now, I want you to visualize something. A small pile of pennies on your desk, a magnifying glass, a bright lamp. You sort slowly. You pick up each coin and feel the weight of possibility in your hands. What if the next coin you check is the one? What if the next rotation under the light reveals those sharp details, that crisp rim, that flawless surface? For so many collectors, this is the moment that hooked them permanently. The moment they realized that hidden treasures don't just belong in pirate movies or adventure novels. They exist in pocket change, in jars, in old boxes in the garage. And sometimes, the difference between a penny and a fortune comes down to one decision: whether you looked or ignored it. Now here's something else to keep you focused. Some of the most incredible Lincoln penny discoveries ever made came from people who weren't even collectors. They were ordinary folks cleaning out drawers, organizing a desk, sorting through old change for the first time in years. They didn't know what to look for. They didn't know coin values. They just got lucky, or maybe they finally paid attention at the perfect moment. And that tells you something powerful. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need years of training. All you need is a little curiosity and a few minutes of your time. Even now, as you listen, someone somewhere in America is discovering a rare coin without even realizing it. They're flipping it between their fingers, about to spend it, completely unaware that they almost threw away the chance to become a millionaire. Let that thought reset your attention again. What if the 1975 penny in your house, hiding inside an old cup or tucked behind a drawer, is the one that makes headlines? What if the coin community starts buzzing about your find? What if your penny becomes the next documented $1 million treasure? Take that thought seriously, because it's not impossible. In fact, it happens more often than people think. So when you search your change later today, take your time. Study the details. Look for that sharper strike, that crisp lettering, that perfect rim. Don't rush it. Don't assume anything. Remember, fortune favors the people who look a little closer. And as this story settles into your mind, as the mystery of that rare 1975 no mint mark penny lingers like a secret almost ready to reveal itself, there's only one thought you should walk away with. You reach into an old jar, expecting nothing more than a few beat-up pennies, and instead, without even realizing it, you're holding a coin that could rewrite your entire life. A coin that looks just like any other 1958 Lincoln cent. Except this one is the legendary 1958 no mint mark wheat penny that some collectors value as high as $1.1 million. And the wildest part? Most people who've ever held one never even knew what they had. Now, before we go any further, take a slow breath and picture the year 1958. America was booming. Gas was 25 cents. Elvis was shaking the world. And at the Philadelphia Mint, where billions of pennies were produced, workers had no idea that a tiny handful of coins, just a few, would become some of the rarest Lincoln cents in history. That's the heart of the mystery. A normal year, a normal mint run, and somehow, an extraordinary treasure slipped into circulation. Every time someone tells the story of the 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny, they say the same thing. There's no way something that common could be worth that much. But that's exactly why it's so dangerous, because it blends in. The wheat ears on the reverse look perfectly ordinary. The portrait of Lincoln seems unchanged. The details, the color, the feel, nothing screams, "I'm worth over $1 million." It hides in plain sight, almost daring collectors to overlook it. Let me reset your attention for a moment, because what I'm about to tell you can change how you look at every penny for the rest of your life. This coin isn't just rare, it's unbelievably rare. Only a microscopic number are known. Some collectors say fewer than 5 genuine examples exist. Imagine walking past a field of billions of blades of grass and needing to find the one that's made of solid gold. That's how this feels. But there's something even more mysterious. See, most valuable pennies have an obvious flaw, like a doubled die, a misplaced mint mark, or a dramatic error. But not this one. The 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny is valuable because of a tiny, subtle, almost invisible doubling on the reverse. We're talking about a doubled die so scarce that the people who first discovered it were dismissed, ignored, even laughed at. Until one day, a verified example sold for a staggering amount, enough to buy homes, cars, and still have money left over. That's when collectors snapped awake and realized the truth. $1 million penny was real. Here's something important. If you ever get your hands on one of these, it won't look flashy. It won't sparkle like a treasure chest. In fact, it'll look like a normal wheat penny you'd toss on the counter without a second thought. That's why so many people have probably handled one without knowing. Think about how many jars, drawers, glove compartments, or dusty boxes have swallowed pennies from the 1950s that nobody has inspected for 50, 60, even 70 years. Think of the estates, the old coffee cans, the forgotten coin rolls. Any one of those could hide $1 million surprise. All right, let's reset again. Pay close attention here, because this is the part collectors often get wrong. And it's why truly valuable coins are sometimes found by complete beginners. So let's talk identification. If you ever want a chance at finding the 1958 wheat penny that's worth over $1 million, here's exactly what you look for. First, it must be a 1958 wheat reverse penny with no mint mark under the date. That alone doesn't make it valuable. Hundreds of millions were made. But the difference, the life-changing detail, is the doubling on the reverse. Focus on the words. Look at the phrase 1 cent. On the genuine rare example, the letters aren't just thicker, they're doubled. Same with United States of America. The doubling appears strong and spread out, like a ghost image behind the real letters. If both sets of words show a clear, bold doubling, not a faint blur, that's your first major sign. Second, examine the motto E pluribus unum at the top. On the real $1 million example, the doubling is so sharp that the letters appear nearly shadowed. It doesn't look like damage. It doesn't look like machine doubling. It looks intentional, crisp, almost artistic. That's the kind of doubling that sends collectors into an absolute frenzy. Finally, if all those details match, you hold your breath and check the coin's condition. The known top value examples were in extremely high grade, near perfect. A scratched or worn one won't hit anywhere near $1 million, but it could still be worth a life-changing amount. Let's reset again. Imagine this scene. A man sits at his kitchen table. He's been coin collecting for years, but he's never found anything special. One day, he picks up a dull brown penny from 1958. Something tells him to look closer. He flips it over, and suddenly his heart stops. The lettering looks doubled. His hands start shaking. He drives straight to a grading service, barely breathing the whole way. Weeks later, the results come back. It's authentic. It's real. And his life is never the same. Stories like that aren't fairy tales. They're the backbone of the coin collecting world. Every collector has a moment where hope and doubt collide. When you look at a coin and think, what if? What if I'm holding something nobody else has seen? What if this tiny copper disc could change everything? That's the heart-pounding, electrifying moment that makes this hobby unlike any other. And the 1958 no mint mark wheat penny is the ultimate example of that feeling. Let me reset your attention again, because this is the part people tend to overlook. This coin didn't become legendary because it was flashy. It became legendary because people ignored it, because it blended in, because it was hiding in the one place nobody thought to look. Think about that. A fortune disguised as a childhood allowance. $1 million hiding in a penny that passed through gas stations, grocery stores, school cafeterias, and yet almost nobody ever looked close enough to see the truth. And that brings us to you. Your collection, your jars, your drawers, your old piggy banks. Think of every penny you've ever tossed aside. Think of every wheat cent you've ever shoved in a bag thinking, I'll check these someday. Today might be the day you finally do. Because this coin, this ghost, this legend, this life changer is still out there. Maybe only a few exist, but someone eventually finds them. Someone eventually discovers the next $1 million penny. And it could absolutely be someone who never expected it'd take this as your sign. Go through your pennies. Slow down. Look closely. Shine a light. Use a magnifier. Trust your instincts. Find that 1958 wheat penny with no mint mark. Flip it over. Study the reverse. Look for the doubling on 1 cent. United States of America and e pluribus unum. You never know. You might see something nobody else has seen in 60+ years.